It moves you to question, to look closer and demand answers. It moves your mind with depth, context, and clarity that go beyond the surface. It moves you forward, giving you the insight you need to make informed decisions. And yes, it moves your heart. It's HDMI, the home deliver bladder control.
You have a quorum, although you don't have Raybould yet.
We have 1 minute, right?
Why on your committee?
Yeah, 1 minute.
Yeah.
We should not.
I can go home. Yeah.
No. You cannot.
You know, I'm still jet lagged. Do you know what time it is?
Oh, details.
It's,
I'm jet lagged. Never drive down.
Is it 10 o'clock at night for you?
oh, it's only 9. I can stay up for a while.
Okay, let's try to get you out in front.
Let's see. Ron Platt with joking. Plus cost. That's from Ireland.
Okay, we ready?
No idea.
Can I start now?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Let's call the meeting to order, the Finance Committee meeting number 4-20. Oh. We got a message on the screen. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so we're calling the Finance Committee meeting to order this afternoon, meeting number 4-26. It's May 8th, 2026, and we are online and at the Water Center. It's 1 p.m. Mountain Time, noon Pacific. Marlene, can you please conduct the roll call?
Certainly. Mr. Gibbs,
Here.
Mr. Stevenson, you're on mute, Mr. Stevenson,
Yes, I am, and I'm here.
and Chair Cole-Hansen.
Here. Okay, so we have a quorum. The next item on the agenda is a loan application for Dalton Water Association. Do we have anyone presenting that information? Justin, our millennial, our tech support. When you're ready, take your time. You're important.
Just getting the steps in, that's all. I can skip the gym later. Let me share my screen quick.
Oh, you didn't tell me how to do that. You have to ask. Which is the main thing.
All right. All right, so we, staff received a loan application from the Dalton Water Association to, let's see, there we go, sorry about that. They need to fix one of their transmission lines from their storage tank down to their distribution system. The pipe is made of an asbestos impregnated concrete. And so along with it being past its useful life, they're also concerned about it being a health and safety hazard. A little background on the Dalton Water Association. They've held several loans with the IWRB in the past. Their first one was actually in 1976, another in 79, all the way through most recently 2008. And all of them to date have been repaid. So they're a frequent flyer of the loan program, and all of the projects have turned out great. Looking at the financial analysis for the project, so they've estimated costs at about $686,000 with a contingency of $111,000. There we go. They assess their water users at $1 or $81.12 per quarter. And then they do have an above and beyond assessment at $1.04 per 1,000 acres over 10,000 gallons. They already have a special assessment in place. They already have a reserve account in place. They've offered, let me get down for security. They've offered a parcel with a pump house and infrastructure as security for the loan, similar to what we've done in the past with them, along with their water rights. And with that, that kind of wraps up the project. They're just looking to replace that transmission line and have everything in place to do it. I'm happy to stand for any questions, or I can jump over to the resolution.
Committee members, are there any questions? And for the record, I see we have board member Raybould on the line present now. I'm not seeing any questions, so why don't we go ahead and go to the resolution?
Perfect. So let's see, jumping to line 34, now be further resolved that the IWRB provides authority for the chairman to effectuate the loan. We had one quick change starting at line 38 that's different from your materials. Now therefore be resolved that the IWRB approves a loan not to exceed $797,000 from the revolving development account. In your materials, it does say the water management. I'll make sure this is updated for the board meeting at a 5.39% interest rate with a 15-year repayment term.
All right, has everybody had a chance to look over the resolution, and are there any questions from committee members or other board members? Not seeing or hearing any, I would entertain a motion to present this loan for approval to the full board.
Madam Chairman, this
Yes,
is
Mr.
Mark.
Gibbs.
I would make a motion to approve the Dalton Gardens loan application to the full board.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second, and just a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Very helpful. And if anybody was wondering where Dalton Water Association is, that's in the Panhandle. That's close to Canada, unlike Lewiston. Just had to throw that in there. Okay, next item on the agenda is a regional water sustainability project list criteria. And I guess we have Wesley.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
Good afternoon.
So I'm just going to share. So I provided some material in the for this meeting. And to give you a little bit of background, the Regional Water Sustainability Priority List has been around for a little while. And the original intent of the list was to basically provide the board with kind of a blueprint of what are the projects that would assist Idaho in having water sustainability, into the future. And as we've grown along, we've gotten a lot of information and we've kind of grown, and we kind of thought it would be a good time to actually revisit the criteria and potentially kind of frame it up a little bit so it aligns with what the board's actually trying to accomplish. And so what we did here is, and I'm just going to jump into the criteria. As I'm sorry, it's arguing with me for some reason. Helps if I grab the right thing. Whoops, that was way too far. The intent of this updated criteria was really focused and emphasizing the regional sustainability part of projects. Are they having a regional impact? And so I'm going to jump down to this part here. And so it kind of starts off with, what are the type of projects that the board looks at? And so obviously there are projects that are associated with aquifer stabilization, regional water supply and water management, infrastructure modernization and rehabilitation, surface water storage and operational improvements, and then also multi-benefits and integrated water management projects. So this portion is intended to give potential applicants, people interested in getting projects on the list, to help kind of focus them on the projects the board's looking for. The key part, and probably the getting into what are the minimum requirements to be considered for the list. And one of the things I want to stress about this is for getting projects on the list. Is not a guarantee for funding, but it's just to outline, here are the projects that would be helpful in meeting these broad goals. So this section here is eligible entities. The irrigation districts, irrigation boards of control, canal companies, water districts, also drainage districts, flood control districts, groundwater districts, soil and water conservation districts, municipal irrigation districts, regional water supply organizations, and federal and state agencies, tribes and municipalities. So that's a pretty broad list. And there again, the intent was to focus on the entities that have these regional concerns. One of the things we tried to focus on is, it's the main purpose of these projects is to impact the region, not necessarily just an individual or a small area. As far as the geographic area, anywhere statewide. And then this next part is the part that really gets into the key parts of what it would take to be eligible for a program. And so the first is that the project or program would have to address a significant regional water sustainability issue, such as declining groundwater levels, surface groundwater interaction challenges, enhancement of water supply, drought resilience, aging or inadequate delivery or storage systems, infrastructure deficiencies that pose demonstrable safety risk, or anticipated water supply conflicts. The second part is the primary purpose of the project must provide benefits that extend beyond a single entity and improve water management at the basin or regional level. The third is aligned with sustainability goals outlined in the Idaho State Water Plan, including active stewardship, protection of existing water rights, and support of future water needs. One of the things that I should have mentioned at the very start, this is draft criteria that we came up with. Definitely looking for board input. And so if you see stuff that's like, that needs to be added, or we're going a step that you don't want to go, please, just let us know. So one of the things that we've stated in here, that ineligible projects are municipal drinking water or wastewater system improvements and projects whose primary purpose is to serve or benefit only a single entity. Now, this part 2 is really designed for potential applicants and goes into detail of the type of information they would have to provide for the board to
Can I ask?
review.
Yes.
Leslie, on the eligible entities, we have the federal government or federal agencies. Have we ever had a federal agency apply for to put an Idaho or project on the list?
At this point in time, no, but there is the potential of that, where there are some projects like with the Bureau of Reclamation, whether that would be improvements to a dam or to other things like that, potentially could come from the federal government. The projects that are in place currently, basically there have been in-state people that have partnered with the Bureau of Reclamation to do that kind of stuff. So it's just keeping it open, but obviously happy to change anything that the board would like.
Just wondered the purpose, because we usually go to federal government for funding us. To us, but
I understand that completely, and I am not attached. I would be more than happy to take that off if you want. So part 2 is just materials.
Madam
that's
Chairman,
needed.
this is Jeff. I think we need to mark that. I tend to agree with Al. I'm not sure that we would want the federal government coming and being the sponsor of a regional sustainability project. I don't know, maybe we need to think about it more, but I would say the space holders in a reservoir could be the project sponsor or something like that, rather than reclamation.
And, yes, can we go ahead and, we probably need to have a vote to remove that, or can we?
No, this is just a draft.
All right,
It's really for you guys to get comment, to kind of jump. So with this, I know there's a lot here. Some of the board members have not seen this before. What I was going to recommend is if you can get me comments by the 1st of next week, then that's what I would present at the board meeting with any changes like that that you want to incorporate. And so please feel free. This is just a draft. You know, kind of going over it. If anything major comes up, absolutely, I can look at taking that out. But also, if you have other comments, as you have more time to look at this and review it, please send those to me, and I'll incorporate that for when we have this discussion with the full board.
okay.
Madam Chair, this is Dean. I have a question for Wes.
Yes. Go ahead,
So,
Dean.
this is probably a dumb question. How do we define a municipality? Is that a city? Is that, what's the definition of a municipality?
That is not anything that we've really thought in depth on. At this stage, it would be pretty open. Anything that would be designated as a city or a town, you know, basically that they're incorporated, is what the general thought was behind that. But that is something we could look at getting more specific if you wanted to slim that down.
Okay, that was just a question I had. So, thank you.
An incorporated area,
Yes.
okay. But we do make, your criteria makes ineligible municipal water systems and sewer systems,
That is correct.
wastewater treatment systems. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, how it's currently set up, that is, yes.
I think that's good.
So, Madam Chair,
Yes.
following up on Dean's question, there are some entities out there that are more than a homeowners association, but less than a town, that have municipal water rights. And so are they eligible, that, you know, an entity like Tamarack, for example, who has municipal water rights because they're supplying, you know, waters. So would that, an entity like Tamarack or some of the other similar projects like that around the state be eligible?
As far as an eligible entity,
Yeah,
the current interpretation of the draft you have in front of you, yes, they would be eligible. But the key part of that was actually of those three bullets that are kind of the minimum qualifications, is if they came to us with a project that would have regional impact, and the sole benefit wasn't just to, or the primary benefit wasn't just to benefit them, like some project they're doing for just their incorporated area, that wouldn't apply. Or, you know, it's like they wouldn't be eligible because they're not addressing a regional issue that affects multiple users.
but that applies if the city was doing the same thing for the city's purposes as well. So I was
Yes.
just saying, is this asking if that entity like that would be eligible? And I think the answer is yes, under the current draft.
Under the current, they would be yes. Okay, and so the other part is, again, this is just information that they would be required to submit. One things we provide is stuff that would be a list of things that we thought was important to include so the board could give a good review of the proposed project. And it gets into some of the stuff that we talked about, that, you know, it defines a regional issue, explains how the project addresses the regional issue, demonstrate regional support, identify and quantify impacts of the regional issue, and identify and quantify all potential impacts, positive and negative, of the proposed project. So basically trying to get a comprehensive list of what are you proposing, how is it going to affect that regional issue, and then if the project is put in, what are all the potential positive and negative effects from it. So the part 3 is just looking at key things that the board takes into consideration. And we started off with some of the key concurrent resolutions from the Senate and the House that's directed the board to address these statewide issues. And then once we go through those, it's just some key items that the board's looked at in the past. So the applicants would have a sense of what's the board looking at, where they need to focus their proposal on. And then the last, the thing that we added was what type of support could they suspect from the board? And so kind of providing a general list of the different avenues that the board has supported projects that are on the list. And that is basically it. The last thing is, how do you get onto the list? We did have it for applicants to apply by December. We've taken that out. And the concept is they could apply at any time, because we usually don't get that many. We have gotten more recently, but I think staff's current thought is we can handle that as they come in. And so for that, that was a very brief rundown. I'll just reiterate is for the board members and the committee members, feel free to look at these. And if you have any comments, changes that you want, please just let me know. Other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions I can at this time.
Okay, so for today, we're not looking at a motion to bring this to the full board.
Not unless the committee's comfortable just doing that before, but if you want to take some more time and review it, as Wes said, please get him your comments.
So committee members, have you had time to review this? Criteria. You want more time?
Joanne, this is Jeff. I think we could take a little more time. I mean, we have some criteria out there now. I think we can be flexible enough if a request is made that we can look at it under the existing criteria. Let's give this a little bit more time, if you're okay with that.
Okay, yes. And other board members, do you have any comments or questions?
I'm fine with waiting.
Okay,
Madam Chair, I think in section 3, your list of what the board is going to take into consideration should also include consistency with the state water plan.
Absolutely.
But
I apologize. I thought that was in there, but yes, we will make sure that gets in there.
It's somewhere else, Wes.
That's why. Yes,
But it's not in section 3, and it probably wouldn't hurt to restate that.
absolutely. We'll put that in.
okay, so you would like to have comments back by the 1st of next week?
Yes, let me ask a little clarification, Madam Chair. Is this something that the board is interested in having the full board consider at the next meeting? Or would you like to take more time than that?
I would like to see it considered at the next full board meeting.
Okay, absolutely then. So given when materials are due, if you could get comments back by the 1st of next week, say by Wednesday, I will incorporate any changes, and then it will be an agenda item at the next board meeting for the full board to look at and consider.
Okay, so committee members and other board members present, let's get Wes our comments by next Wednesday on this, so we can consider it at the full board meeting the following week.
Absolutely, and during that time, if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call.
And Madam Chair, Wes has taken the comments that we've given him today at this meeting. He has those. Or do we need to resubmit those?
It wouldn't hurt to resubmit them. I have full faith in staff here has caught those. I can guarantee I have not caught them up here. So as you're going through it, feel free to make those comments again, just to make sure that I don't miss anything.
Okay.
Okay. I did write down the 2 comments that were made, and I will make sure that I email those to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Wes. I think we're ready to move on to the next agenda item, which is the Winchester Dam Repair Project and the Regional Water Sustainability Proposal. We have Amber Worthington with the Idaho Department of Fish and Game here to present to us. Or
Mary's gonna
lead off. Okay.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. We're just going to pull up the materials again that were just up.
I apologize. I made a mistake of hitting the X.
No, the meeting materials.
Did you
close
the internet?
I did not.
So the Department of Fish and Game is requesting support and financial assistance from the Idaho Water Resource Board to rehabilitate the Winchester Dam in the amount of $1 million. The total project cost is $3.6 million. With us today is the Fish and Game Deputy Director, Amber Worthington. She's going to provide an overview of the project and the department's funding request with a PowerPoint presentation. The formal application and cover letter from Fish and Game are included in your materials. Additionally, there's a draft version of a resolution and terms to add the Winchester Repair Project, and $1 million in funding is also attached for consideration by the Finance Committee. And with that, we'll go ahead and pull up the presentation for Deputy Director. There we go. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee or board. Is it called committee in this format or? Okay, committee and Deputy Director. I'm Amber Worthington, Deputy Director of Department of Fish and Game. And with me today is Clint Worthington, our Engineering Bureau Chief, as well as Tim Eddy, one of our staff engineers. I will lean on them for assistance if I need technical help or anything that I can't answer. And I am here today to ask for consideration to be added to the Regional Water Sustainability Projects Priority List and be granted $1 million to help fund our Winchester Lake Dam rehabilitation. And so I did add a little background here. I understand Madam Chair now has a lot more information about Fish and Game than I knew. So that's, I'm going to just kind of whiz through this if I possibly can. So I just wanted to give a little history on the department. So Fish and Game in 1864, the first game laws were created in the Idaho Territory. And then in 1899, the fifth legislative session established the Fish and Game Department by creating the first game warden position. In 1903, the first license fees were established at $1 for resident males and $5 for non-residents. Quite a difference from today. Idaho's first successful voter initiative was passed in 1938, creating the Idaho Fish and Game Commission and establishing the commission districts, which we now define as regions. With the Pittman-Robertson Federal Aid Act passage in 1937, which is a collection of excise tax on firearms, ammunition, and archery equipment, we put our first PR monies on the ground with the trapping and transplanting of beavers in 1938, and also purchased our first wildlife management area in 1940. We also received Dingell-Johnson federal monies, which is an excise tax collected on fishing equipment and motorboat fuel. Both types of these federal funding are very unique in that we are federally and statutorily required to use it only for restoring, enhancing, and managing fish and wildlife habitat, development and management of boating access facilities and shooting ranges, and aquatic and hunters education programming. The department relies upon federal funds at around 43% of our budget and dedicated funds, mostly license and tag sales for the rest. We do not receive any general fund monies to support our activities. In the 1970s, Fish and Game went through a reorganization to more closely align to what we look like now, and we were established as an executive branch agency at that point in time. Also in the 70s, legislature established the earmarking of part of our license fee, which is $2, specific for land acquisition and enhancement of wildlife habitat, and also to authorize the purchase, lease, receipt as gift, management by agreement, and even condemnation of land to serve purposes defined by our mission. And you will hear shortly about the acquisition of Winchester. The property was acquired prior to the statutory authority. Department has over 550 full-time employees and hire approximately 200 temporary employees, and now consists of the 7 regions that we have, each managed under a regional supervisor. Our headquarters is based here in Boise. As mentioned earlier, we have a commission representing each of the 7 regions and appointed by the governor. They are responsible for administering the policy. The commission currently appoints our director, which until July 1st of 2026, when the director will then be appointed by the governor. That is a new statute that just was recently passed. He will continue to have oversight by the commission. The department manages 2 deputy directors, the engineering bureau chief, and the legislative and community engagement coordinator. The 2 deputies, including myself, oversee the regions and bureaus of fisheries, wildlife enforcement, administration, communications, and technical services. IDFG owns and manages approximately 440,000 acres of land, primarily wildlife management areas. Through various agreements and in cooperation with Idaho Department of Land, large tracts owners such as timber companies, and Access Yes landowners, the department provides opportunity for access for sportsmen and women on approximately 3.6 million acres. IDFG owns and manages 19 hatcheries across the state, which provides over 30 million fish per year for stocking. We are responsible for 313 access sites for fishing and management of the 42 game species found in the 26,000 miles of streams and rivers, more than 3,000 natural lakes, and 250,000 acres of pond and reservoirs. IDFG access sites range from small parking lots for walk-in fishing to full-service recreation complexes that include boat ramps, docks, restrooms, large parking lots, and campgrounds. Winchester Lake hosts several of the access sites we manage specifically for fishing. The lake is located in Lewis County near Winchester, Idaho, 183 miles north of Boise and about 34 miles southeast of Lewiston. The man-made reservoir was originally called Lapway Lake and built in 1910 with the damming of Lapway Creek by the Craig Mountain Lumber Company. The intent of the reservoir was to serve as a mill pond for the company as it was building the largest sawmill in the area at the time. Over the years, the land and mill changed hands when it finally landed with Potlatch Forest Inc. The lake use also changed from serving as just a mill pond initially to a fishery in the 30s when it was stocked with trout and at some point catfish, to a more expansive recreation center with swimming, boating, and ice skating in the winter. The mill provided the livelihood for the area primarily, and the recreation lure of the reservoir was a tourism hub, with folks traveling the railways from miles away to partake in the boathouses and dressing rooms, picnic and family outing opportunities, and even 4th of July celebrations that lasted days. And even when the mill wasn't in operation, it was still the source of water and electricity for the town. At some point, the area was relieved of all of its marketable timber, and the mill's various owners that came and went finally shut down for good. The farmers remained, but after a couple town fires taking out infrastructure and the loss of work from the mill closure, the town of Winchester suffered and was left relying upon the reservoir for visitors and commerce. And without the first timber crib dam built by the Craig Mountain Lumber Company, there would be no lake, little commerce, and no Winchester Lake State Park. The dam was placed at the northern portion of the Winchester Lake, which is indicated on the map by the red box in the satellite image there, and what is now part of Winchester Lake State Park. The original dam was composed as a timber crib with clay, silt, sand, basalt fragment mixtures. It was noted that from the very beginning, the dam had leakage issues requiring additional material to be added on the upstream slope and embankment to control the leakage over the years. With the additional material, the present crest width is now approximately 140 feet. You can see that across the top. That's what we're speaking of as far as the crest width. At some point prior to IDFG purchasing the land, the lake and the dam, a core wall was added. I don't have a picture of that, so I apologize. As well as a 36-inch low-level outlet at the foundation of the dam. The outlet leaked soon after the new addition was eventually plugged. An Idaho Department of Water Resources report in 1948 indicated that the core wall was damaged due to original structure failure in the spillway, and repairs were reportedly made to fix it. Seems clear that even in 1966, when Fish and Game acquired the dam, the lake, and the surrounding property, that the dam still required a lot of work. The lake was drained at some point. The existing timber that had sunk in the lake was removed, and design and construction work began on a concrete spillway and cutoff wall. However, issues have persisted. In 1980, grouting work was done to help alleviate observed leakage, and in 1984, extensive stabilization work was also done. That brings us to more current times. In 2022, a semi-quantitative risk analysis was done by McMillan Jacobs as part of a regular effect analysis for IDWR and state dams. IDWR assesses risk level on all state dams and rated Winchester Lake Dam as a high hazard due to the level of consequences should the dam fail. As you saw on the previous slides, the dam is situated right beside the Highway 95 business route, is also close to the main Highway 95, and protects downstream communities of Cul-de-sac and Lapway from flood damage. The risk analysis found that the overall risk of failure was above tolerable risk thresholds. This report and review of past inspection records provided the impetus to begin the design process to rehabilitate the dam in 2023. Part of the work that went into getting to a design involved a site visit, research, and then review of repair alternatives. The Winchester Dam Assessment Phase 1 report came out of that work and provided the alternatives and a high level of cost estimates. Concurrently, routine reinsurance work was being done through risk management with the Department of Administration. Due to the most recent IDWR report rating of poor for the dam, the insurance company would not reinsure without mitigation work being done, that which would lower the dam to 40 inches to satisfy the requirement. The fuse plugs shown, I don't know if I can get back. The fuse plugs, which are at the top of, you see that orange separation there, and it's that gravel area. So those are the fuse plugs. The fuse plugs shown in that previous slide were removed to allow the water to lower sufficiently. Without removal of those fuse plugs, we wouldn't have been able to take that water down that 40 inches. Then in 2024, IDFG selected a suitable rehabilitation alternative that includes rebuilding the spillway and installing a geomembrane liner to mitigate seepage. With that alternative selection made, design work and core drilling was done, an engineering estimate was produced, and the design work was approved by IDR just this spring. As mentioned, the rehabilitation work will include adding capacity to the spillway and installing a geomembrane liner system. The overall project will include demolition, concrete formation, anchoring, a temporary berm structure, dewatering and erosion, and some sediment controls. The entire design work is included in the application packet that was submitted to you. The general site plan includes regrading and vegetation provision for the contractor to include removing all temporary erosion and sediment measures. The demolition plan includes demolition of existing chain link fence up to the bridge area, the existing concrete flume wall, the existing gate and all associated equipment, existing concrete spillway structures upstream, existing steel railway along top of the right chute wall, and existing siphon pipe. And this is just a slide showing more of the detail. The hashes show some of the structures that will be removed. It doesn't encompass everything, but you can see all of the structures that are going to be removed in the process. The overall site plan, showing more of the detail, shows construction of a coffer dam and a bypass system, construction of a new spillway control structure and approach walls, installation of the new geomembrane liner system, regrading the backfill, installation of a new siphon pipe, and relocation of the existing intake structure. Addition of the new wall extensions on the existing spillway walls, as well as addition of new weir boxes and new piezometers. The engineering estimate gave a cost of between $2.8 million and $3.6 million, not including construction oversight. We have identified the potential funding sources that are shown on the slide, including the board monies, and then the Department of Parks and Recreation has indicated their interest in helping fund the project through the Land and Water Conservation Fund. That does require a 50% match. The remaining funding will come most likely from IDFG license funds. And what I mean by that is if we have to provide a match, we can't use our federal monies for a federal grant. So we would have to use license funds potentially for the rest of it. Should all plans go without a hitch, ideally we'd receive spending authority for all funding to be effective July 1, 2027 at the latest. And as such, the project would be scheduled to commence on that date and to conclude no later than June 30 the following year. If we can get started earlier with bid and other items, we would hope to finish the project sooner. And as you can see, those are the items laid out there for construction plans. Let's see. And those construction estimates are, of course, based on the design firm. So until we go through the bid process and hire someone to do the project, we really don't have certainty of the actual schedule. So you can see how those estimates are shaped in. And finally, I'd like to speak briefly about the support we have for the project and the impact that existing conditions are having on the community. First of all, the community of Winchester has done extensive outreach to get the dam fixed, including attending the Capitol for a day at Orofino and sending letters to the governor's office and the legislature. Governor's office supports the effort to get the dam fixed, as does Parks and Recreation. Representative Lori McMahon and Madam Chair as well supports the project from what we have heard. As I mentioned earlier, Winchester Lake is vital to this community, providing fishing, recreation, tourism, commerce, and even at full level, the lake sometimes suffers from algal blooms, but with the 40-inch drawdown and inevitably warmer waters, that is even more impactful and is discouraging for visitation and use. I understand businesses have suffered because of this, and even the park has experienced a drop in reservations because of the limitations in recreating on the lake. Additionally, the dam's stability is vital for the impoundment of the water that not only serves a foundation for recreation, but most importantly for protecting the downstream communities of Cul-de-sac and Lapway and the travelers on Highway 95, as I mentioned earlier. So to wrap up, I do want to say thank you for your time and consideration for this project, and I'm happy to take questions and turn it over to engineering if need be.
Okay, are there any questions from committee members? I'm not hearing any. The one thing I would like to ask, the highway US 95 is the only north-south highway through that area for transport. So if it does get flooded out, then transportation has to go elsewhere through there's no other route, right?
Madam Chair, short of maybe country roads, that is correct.
No. Okay.
Madam Chair, this is Mark.
Yes, go ahead, Mark.
just a rough idea, how much water does that impound? What kind of acre feet, or what's the depth of that lake?
I want to say it's approximately 1,400 acre feet, if I remember the.
Can you come to the podium because the people online can only hear through these mics? Thank you.
My name's Tim Eddy. I'm an engineer with Fish and Game. I believe from the inspection, the IDWR inspection report, it's 1,400 acre feet.
And the depth is
I don't
30,
recall.
35 feet or so?
I think that's about right, yeah. But
And that's with the drawdown?
no, that's
No.
impounding water.
Okay,
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
all right. Any questions from other board members?
So the flood management responsibility, is there a mandatory drawdown in the winter time in case a winter flood comes, or it would just be drawn down if an emergency was showing up and refilled?
Madam Chair, the way that dam is structured is it just is a spillover. So that water just naturally spills over if it gets to that level. Right now, it's low enough to where that's not a concern.
Okay, is there a resolution that we should look at? No. Thank you, Amber.
Madam Chair, I'm just going to bring up that draft resolution. Apologize, I set down my materials and that's the page numbers. So we have the draft resolution up here. Introduction into the regional water sustainability priority list that has been established for spending for large regional water sustainability projects. And that this criteria was last updated in 2025. That Idaho Code 421760 authorizes expenditures from the water management accounts. And whereas on line 18, the Department of Fish and Game has submitted to the board for its Winchester Dam repair project to be added to the regional water sustainability priority list. On 22, Fish and Game has presented the proposal to the Finance Committee today on March 8th, requesting funding for approximately 1/3 of the total project cost, estimated to be $3.6 million, with a target completion date of July of 2028. And she said June 30th, so I apologize. We could put June also. And then a maximum reimbursement amount from the board of $1 million. Line 27, whereas on March 8th, the Finance Committee has recommended to the board that they add the Winchester Dam repair project to the list and approve requested funds. And I'm just going to skip down here to the now therefore be resolved on line 37. The board approved the Winchester Dam repair project to the list. Next page. Be it further resolved that the board approved $1 million in regional water sustainability funding from the water management account to Fish and Game for the project. And further resolved that the board approved the terms and conditions. And I have those below this if you'd like to go through them. And the contract for this project will also contain the standard contract conditions as others. Would you like to see the standard terms and conditions?
I'm fine with them unless any of the other committee members would like to see them. I do have a question though, further up on the resolution. You said March 8th, do you mean May 8th that we're adding it to the list?
I do. Yes, Madam Chair, I actually had this prepared for the March presentation and did not update that one. So thank you.
Okay. Okay, so with that change, are there any questions about the resolution from committee members? from other board members? I would entertain a motion to,
Madam Chairman, this is Mark. I so move that we recommend this Winchester Dam repair to the full board at the next board meeting.
It's Jeff, I'll
Thank you.
second it.
all right, it's been moved and second to add this to the regional sustainability list as a recommendation to the full board. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Might as well stay there.
I will.
Thank you, Fish and Game.
All right.
Okay, next item on the agenda, Mountain Home Plateau Aquifer Regional Water Sustainability Project funding proposal.
Thank you, Madam Chair Cole-Hansen. So this is consider funding for Mountain Home Plateau Aquifer Regional Water Sustainability Program. Elmore County is requesting support, resources, and funding for several initiatives and projects aimed at stabilizing the aquifer through the Mountain Home Plateau Aquifer Stabilization Program under the Regional Water Sustainability Project Priority List. We really need an acronym there. On March 22nd, 2026, the board placed the Mountain Home Plateau Aquifer Stabilization Program on the list with an earmark of $8 million in funding through Resolution 11-2026. The earmarked funding is not authorized to be spent without further approval from the board. We have a representative online. It's going to be Carrie with representing Elmore County to provide a presentation on their funding request. Their formal funding request is in your materials, and I've also summarized it within the memo that you're seeing. And with that, I'll let Carrie do her presentation.
Hey, welcome, Carrie.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Am I sharing my screen or are you guys sharing the presentation?
I am just going to stop sharing this one so you can share.
Okay. Here we are. Are we live there? Which one are we? Are we seeing the right screen?
We're seeing your
Yes.
presentation screen.
Okay. I never know because I have two monitors up. You know how it goes. So let me pull my notes over here so I can get everything on the right one. Okay. So I'll be brief today because we've gone over these projects many times. But just to summarize what is in your packets today, I do have Dylan Lawrence, the county's water right counsel, and then also Terry Scanlon on to answer any other technical questions that you all might have. So overall, we've discussed many times, but the Mountain Home Plateau Aquifer is seeing a 30 to 40,000 acre foot.
Carrie,
oh yeah.
Sorry, Carrie, can I stop you real quick? Your presentation is on your window. Could you center your?
Okay. Let me reorganize. I'm so sorry.
You still have 10 minutes. You still have 10 minutes. You're done.
I get to leave in 10 minutes?
I am sorry.
Oh, right.
Okay, do we see just the presentation?
I don't. Would it be easier if I pull it
Yeah,
up
maybe
and
you
share it?
guys just share it. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
You need to just unplug and do one monitor. It gets too confusing.
Hey, Carrie, we're ready for you. Just
Beautiful. Okay. We can just go right there. Perfect. Okay. So we have the 30 to 40,000 acre foot per year deficit estimated. Of course, we're waiting on the aquifer modeling to confirm those numbers, but we do know it's in that scale of problem. So the proposed solution is to develop new surface water supplies and reduce the region's dependence on groundwater. And then long-term.
Hey, Carrie,
Sure.
can I interrupt just one more time. Is there any way your voice has got a bit of an echo?
Oh no,
Is there a speaker or something that you can
I'm just fully.
dial into?
Is this any better? No.
No, that's okay. We can power through.
I am so sorry. Is it better if I talk closer to this here?
Absolutely.
It is.
Okay, I'm just gonna go off camera because I have to talk right into my laptop. Okay. So the proposed solution, bring more surface water in, reduce dependence on groundwater, support just the long-term regional water reliability, which of course is related to the economic stability of the region, supporting the growth that we are seeing, and then also enhancing the water security for the Air Force Base. We can go to the next screen. I won't belabor it too long here. So we have a three-pronged approach. The South Fork Boise River Diversion Project, the Mountain Home Irrigation District Canal System, and then the Snake River Pump Station and Pipeline projects. And these are the three categories in your proposal. So we'll go to the next slide and we'll just go through briefly what this entails. So the first part of the funding request for the South Fork Boise River Diversion Project is the pump station and pipeline proposed on the Anderson Ranch Reservoir. The funding request includes finalizing the 90% design. The county is about 75% through that 90% design process and are just looking to help them get to the finish line. In that, we also recognize that NEPA needs to be finalized. The county has done some preliminary NEPA studies for some of the cultural, some of the wetlands. Additional work needs to be done. And to get us all the way through NEPA and permitting compliance with Forest Service, and then Reclamation would likely be a cooperating agency on that. Also built into this effort, and as a bigger one, is the need to formalize a long-term management entity, something we've been thinking about. We heard the board on this. It'll be likely some sort of district, but obviously needed to operate and manage the project long-term. So that's something incorporated into these efforts that we recognize. So the goal of this part of the funding request is really to get us to the position to be a shovel-ready project, so the county can effectively pursue future construction funding and move into the implementation once the permitting is complete. Go to the next slide, please. So the board has funded multiple aging infrastructure grants for the Mountain Home Irrigation District Canal System. This canal system delivers water from Little Camas Reservoir down through the existing aging tunnels and canals onto the plateau, and is currently a major source of recharge for the area. This funding request is for an alternative study that includes a seepage study as well. Really look at the canal infrastructure as a whole. The aging infrastructure grants have helped to kind of do those immediate needs, maybe get us through the next 40 years, but we're looking at these generational projects. And if we're going to be able to draw water out of Anderson Ranch and deliver it down to the plateau, we need a solid delivery system. So this is looking at a long-term solution for the canals, how to make it more efficient, flow capacity, look at exactly where the seepage loss is, and really make that the most efficient for delivery down to the Mountain Home Plateau. The study would also develop conceptual cost estimates and implementation priorities to support future funding and phased infrastructure improvements. Go to the next one is the Snake River water delivery. So the county has secured their first 20 CFS on the Snake River. And we've also been successfully working with some large farmers south of Mountain Home on a potential second water right application that will include soft conversions. We have sign off for about 5,400 acres out there, and that would be a big push to get the Snake River water up into those farmlands and stop the big pumpers leaving that water in the ground, the best kind of recharge. So this funding request would be to look at potential pump station and pipeline alternatives, develop conceptual designs, cost estimates, and identify the most feasible delivery approaches. This also would advance some of that additional Snake River water right permitting strategies, positioning for the future funding opportunities for the final design. And similar to the South Fork Boise River Diversion Project, we've also incorporated efforts for that management entity to manage and operate this project with the others long-term. We've spoken at length to NRCS about this part of the project, or the Snake River water part of the project as the overall three-pronged approach. And the goal would be to come out of this planning effort with a viable alternative and cost estimate that then we could advance with the NRCS and other partner agencies to construction. On to the next one. Here's our proposed budget that we had in your packet. So we are requesting just over $1.1 million out of that $8 million allocation to this program. I did add a column here. This was in the narrative of the packet, but the county has expended about $3.4 million to these efforts since 2015. And this would be, we're hoping that you would consider that match of source. We want to show that the county is putting dollars into this, actively working on it. We could just really use some help to get us over this planning hump. The planning phases are the hardest to fund, and it's a huge chunk of dollars coming from such a rural county. So you'll see there the $500,000 for the South Fork Boise River Diversion Project with the final design and NEPA included in there. And then also, as I mentioned, the management entity formation. It includes some additional aid to procure the capital funding. And then the Mountain Home Irrigation District Canal System Alternative Study, they're at $158,400. And then the Snake River Pump Station Pipeline Alternative Study at $435,000. Again, with that district or management entity. I say a district, but it's kind of complicated being in what we're looking at doing. And it's going to take a big effort. So kind of a joint effort to figure out what that management entity looks like for these three projects long-term. So that was, I guess we do have one more. I have a couple benefits here that we really want to come out with the final engineering for the South Fork and then the preliminary engineering for the other projects and the financial clarity for the next steps. It's really hard to go for those bigger federal funding packages without solid alternative and cost estimates. So this planning phase on all these is really important for that. And then form the appropriate managing entity or entities, and then again, support that state and federal grant and loan applications. So that was my super fast get through it. But let's stand for any questions.
Okay, are there any questions from committee members?
Madam Chair, this is Jeff. If we could go back to that slide that showed how much money had been invested by the county. I was curious, hasn't the water board contributed to some projects within the Mountain Home Aquifer area? I just wondered if anybody in the room off the top of their head can tell us how much money the board has spent to date on projects that benefit the Mountain Home Aquifer in Elmore County.
Yes, I don't have the exact number, but there have been multiple projects that we like to highlight we've highlighted in our past presentations. And we had the Canyon Creek recharge diversion to help with the direct aquifer recharge out into the gravel pits. The planning or the modeling and including Mountain Home into the Treasure Valley model, and then expanding it into the Snake River East or Western Snake River Plain aquifer model has also been a big one. And again, all the two aging infrastructure grants, and there's a third pending for the irrigation district. Dylan or Terry, if you guys want to chime in with what I'm forgetting.
Anything, any more? Does that answer your question, Jeff?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Be nice to see the numbers.
Could we request to see those numbers in a future presentation?
Yes, absolutely.
How about, where are you with the management formation, the special purpose district or whatever it is that you're trying to form to manage the overall projects?
Yeah, and I'll try to stay out of the weeds too much on this because it probably will necessitate multiple future meetings, but the way we see this being successful is spreading the costs across the beneficiaries as the entire region benefits, because every single drop of drinking water, every municipal user, domestic user, all of it comes from the ground right now for the most part, and ag is the only one that really splits that surface, uses the surface water. So we want to spread the benefits, where the benefits are spread out. We need to spread the cost out. There's no current district under Idaho law that we can assess the general population, like a fire district where you might not see that fire truck at your house every day, but the benefit is there. That just doesn't exist right now in Idaho law. The irrigation district, the irrigators pay, and we can't just form an irrigation district or a groundwater district because only the groundwater users and irrigation users, it's limited on who that would pay. And if we burden the farmers with this project, it won't be successful. So we need to figure out how to spread the benefits out. And we also are ahead, thankfully, of any sort of water call and forced mitigation. So it's a little bit different, a new situation where we're trying to solve this problem ahead of a water call. So in short, we have attorneys involved, and we've talked to the Idaho Water Users Association and trying to connect the dots and figuring out, do we need to maybe amend some legislation? The last resort would be new legislation. Is there something creative we can do within a regional water plan? We've talked about reenacting the regions, I'm losing the words for it, Terry, chime in, but the groundwater management plan for the region that would have its own management entity with that. We've gone through lots of options, but right now we don't have a clear path.
Madam Chair, this is Jeff. I mean, can't the county just create a budget line item for water projects and then everybody in the county gets assessed? As part of the county's overall budget?
Well, that's not a question I can answer.
Well, I guess I'm just posing a question.
The county, I think it's an unpalatable political move there. Also, the county doesn't want to run water projects. They don't feel like they are the best. They don't have the staff. It's not like a city that has a water department. They don't have all that set up. We have talked about that as running it as a fund through the county. And it just seems like we come into the pros and cons. The cons kind of outweigh the pros, and an outside entity of multiple stakeholders is where we've continued to land.
Okay, as the Finance Committee Chair, I'm comfortable with moving forward with your request, but I do want to caveat that with, I think it's imperative that we get this structure in place that has both the authority and the accountability to maintain any assets that the state's invested in long-term. I don't know if we can make that part of the resolution.
Yes, Madam Chair, the county fully recognizes that, and we hear that from the commissioners consistently too, and it's a big emphasis within this planning effort within both of those, mainly the South Fork, Boise, and the Snake River project to solve that as the #1 priority.
Well, Madam Chairman, this is Jeff. I suppose maybe part of the approval process for this funding could be that until the yet to be identified operating entity for all of this is in place, that the county will take responsibility for it. Is that something that would be palatable for the county?
Yes, I think that's their intended approach, is to be the face in front and understanding we can't lose time in the planning process of keeping everything moving forward, waiting for something, but rather doing them concurrently.
Madam Chair, I think that works, given that this 1.1 million is for the planning phases. Just encourage them to, move forward with that operating entity in parallel.
Okay.
Encourage, I don't think this is strong enough word.
Is okay.
Well, Madam Chair, to follow up on Mr. Barker's comment, I just think as long as we make it clear that until we get this new entity in place that takes over all these responsibilities, Elmore County will commit that they will be the responsible party.
Yes, we probably would need that by resolution from the county commissioners.
Yeah, I mean, does that solve your problem, Mr. Barker?
I think that answers the concern I had, Mr. Raybould.
Okay, are we prepared to are there any more questions for Carrie on this project? We've heard about the project several times. Now they're requesting funding for the planning phase. Any comments or questions from committee members? Any from other board members?
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Carrie, on the Boise River diversion, what's the amount of water that is being proposed to be withdrawn? Because I thought this was just had a very short window of time where you could take water out of the Boise River only during flood control operations.
Yes, the county currently has the 200 CFS water right permit on Anderson for flood water. However, the project is not being designed to take 200 CFS off. It just wasn't, it's not a sustainable project when we're looking at these long-term solutions. We need to procure more water to make that more sustainable. So I wanted, and this is where Terry or Dylan chime in if my number's wrong. I want to say go ahead, Terry.
Well, I just say that, yeah, you're on track. This is a 50 to 70 CFS design, which kind of works with delivery into Little Camas, but it assumes that part of the supply would be acquired storage out of Anderson, whether it's rental pool or otherwise. So that's kind of the plan.
So, Madam Chair, Terry, is there a storage component in Camas for this water right, or how is that going to work?
Yes, there's a 10,000 acre foot storage component to the water right in Little Camas.
Okay, thanks.
All right, any further questions? Not hearing or seeing any. Mary, is there a resolution that we should look at?
I'm sure I do not have a resolution drawn up. I'm just looking for direction on what you would like to, for me to bring for you for funding at the May board meeting. Or if you would like to present all of these projects or a portion of to the full board.
I would entertain a motion to bring forward these a motion from the committee to forward these projects, all of them with a clause stating the county would be responsible.
I so move, Madam Chairman.
And is there a second?
Madam Chairman,
So-
this is Mark, I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbs. It's been moved and second to bring forward to the full board the Mountain Home Plateau funding proposal. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Carrie, for your presentation, and Terry for your interjections there.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, next item on the agenda.
175 days.
Okay, next item is an item under the Eastern Snake Plain Aquifer Surface Water Coalition Efficiency Program and a request from the Minidoka Irrigation District. And Justin Ferguson will lead off with that presentation.
Okay. There we go. All right. So staff received an application from the Minidoka Irrigation District under the Surface Water Coalition Operational Efficiencies Program, requesting $3.21 million to rebuild their F-waste structure. So that structure serves as an emergency siphon for both Minidoka and the Burley Irrigation District. And according to a recent study done by a contractor, Civil Science of Twin Falls, the only thing holding it together is the volume of concrete of the structure. So it was built in the 1900s. The core samples were taken in 2021. And I have a couple pictures that I can jump over and show real quick right after this. But the proposal would be to build a new structure approximately 10 feet upstream of the existing, and then once that's in place, demolish the existing. Depending on timing and scheduling and phasing, they may be able to run both of these projects concurrently. I've still got to get with the district and see what that looks like. But here on the right-hand side of the picture, you can kind of see at the bottom of the main stem of their delivery system, it's this F-waste structure that kicks back out to the Snake River. And with that, we also have Shauna Adams online if you do have any questions about the project. But with that, I'm happy to stand for any questions, or I can jump over to the resolution.
Committee members, are there any questions for Justin on the project? I'm not seeing any. Why don't other board members, do you have any questions? Why don't we move to the resolution?
Let's see. So jumping to line 13, whereas the Minidoka Irrigation District submitted a proposal to repair the existing F-waste structure used by both Minidoka and I will fix Burley's name, Burley Irrigation District, and to regulate canal operations. And then jumping to line 17, now therefore it be resolved that the IWRB approves the Surface Water Coalition Operational Efficiencies Program funding request to the Minidoka Irrigation District in the amount of $3.21 million. All
right. Any questions on the resolution? If there are not, I'd entertain a motion to move this forward to the full board.
Madam Chair, this is Jeff. Go ahead, Dean. You got it.
Oh, Madam Chair, I'd make a motion that we recommend this to the full board.
I'll second it.
All right. Any other questions or anything before we vote? Not hearing any. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
And I had meant to pull up one of these pictures between the memo and the resolution, but this is what that concrete structure looks like on your screen.
Saw that in the board materials?
Yeah.
Yep. Wondered if it was cookie dough.
What kind of cookies do you make, Madam Chair?
Not very good ones, I'll tell you that. Okay.
Rocky Road. Remakes.
All right, next item on the agenda, the grant program timing and criteria, and we have Mary Condon back for that.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. So this first item is grant timing. I'm just going to go ahead and bring back up those meeting materials. That perhaps have been closed. There it is. Then we are going to be sorry, I have my page wrong here. Okay, we're finally there. I apologize. So this is for consideration of the grant application period timing and deadlines. So in March of 2026, I had presented a program overview, and one of the questions asked was if we need to adjust the timing. Staff have reviewed the timing of our current grant applications, which are presented in this calendar here. What we did identify and what we're proposing is first, to take the measuring and monitoring grants and actually open those up year round, beginning July 1, consistent with the fiscal year. The second timing would be groundwater to surface water conversion grants. And instead of the due date in August, like they're showing currently, we would actually have them due the 1st of July. However, we would not bring them before the board until the September regularly scheduled meeting. So we would have in September our aging infrastructure, our conversions, and hopefully measuring and monitoring all at the same time. And this is actually a more effective workload for us than staggering them out. Is this something that the finance committee would like us to move forward with in adjusting our timing?
Do we need a voice vote for that?
Yes.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to move the timing to accommodate the staff schedule. You're on mute, Jeff.
Do that. Okay. And this is a recommendation for the full board to approve.
Yes, it's a recommendation for the full board. Yes.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, this Mark.
Okay, it's been moved and second to make a recommendation to full board to change the timing of the grants per the schedule presented. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next item that we have here is the criteria for aging infrastructure, measuring and monitoring, and the groundwater to surface water conversion grants. Again, in March of this year, I did an overview of the processing for grants, and I discussed the current constraints that we were facing. In summary, for aging infrastructure, it was last updated in May of 2025. For the criteria, was last updated in May of 2025. However, it is silent on any requirement of the applicant to address mitigation when they propose to reduce incidental recharge. The onus should be on the applicant to show how they will not injure other water rights or how they will mitigate for any reductions in water supply from their proposed project. Updates to the criteria are necessary to further describe the information required from applicants for projects that reduce incidental recharge, as a clear division of associate. So what this is saying is if they are reducing incidental recharge, break out their costs associated with incidental recharge reductions separately, so that if the board chooses not to fund any of those that do reduce incidental recharge, they still have the costs associated with those that don't. On B, for groundwater to surface water conversion grants, the criteria also was last updated in May of 2025. And this is just actually for formatting and disclosures consistent with our other criteria, similar to what we did with the flood management grants. We are trying to come up with a consistent formatting so that an applicant can look at each criteria and know exactly where to find the information they need in order to apply. The measuring and monitoring grant criteria, this was also last updated in May of 2025. It is specific to the Eastern Snake Plain Aquifer area of common groundwater supply. However, there have been measurement orders issued by the director of the Department of Water Resources in areas outside of the ESPA across the state. Water users statewide could benefit from an expansion to the eligible geographic location of measuring and monitoring grants outside the ESPA. I did reach out to a couple of water masters. The concerns are the areas where they're hearing they would like to see some assistance and funding for telemetry and other measurement is in Water District 65, Water District 67, which is Weiser. We also have Water District 69 for Crooked River. And then in the Lemhi area, Salmon area for Water District 72A, Water District 75 Greater Salmon, and 74 Lemhi. And then we also have some down in the lower southeast side of the state for Thomas Fork in Water District 11F and the Bancroft London 13T. So we're proposing revisions to these grant criteria for the aging infrastructure, measuring and monitoring, and the groundwater to surface water conversions. First, as a standard format with additional language addressing these following items: response time for applicants. This is where we're reducing the time from 1 year down to 90 days. Registration with the state of Idaho for vendors and for reimbursements. This is through iPro, just to give them a heads up. Reimbursement procedures, and then in-kind work, proposed budgets, their reimbursement requests, and record keeping. So general formatting on what we expect to see for in-kind reimbursement requests. And then the mandatory insurance requirement. And all of these are to address the contract manager constraints and improve workflow efficiency. So again, in A through C, for the aging infrastructure grant, I do have criteria. I do have the criteria redline version. We could walk through that. I have the yellow items that are there, as well as the language that I proposed for reductions to incidental recharge and what the applicant should provide. I also have a copy of the red line of the groundwater to surface water conversion grants with the, this one does also add a requirement for the applicant to list the groundwater rights for the lands where they would have the surface water delivered to, for the groundwater rights for the surface water be delivered to. And then a copy of the proposed revised measuring and monitoring grants is attached also to consider opening this statewide. And with that, like I said, Madam Chair, I could jump to any of these red lines if you would like to discuss any language.
Okay, you did, those were included in our board materials, our committee materials. Do any of the committee members have a desire to go through them in more detail? Okay, I'm not hearing any of the other board members. You'll have a chance to look at them before the full board meeting. So we don't have a resolution, so we're just you're asking for a vote to adopt or to present the criteria to the full board.
Yes, ma'am.
With the do pass recommendation. So is there a motion from one of the committee members?
Madam Chairman, this is Mark. I so move.
Thank you, Mark. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved and second to move the revisions to the grant criteria to the full board for a recommendation of a due pass. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks for the tremendous amount of work you've done on those. And I did read them thoroughly.
I actually looked them over also fairly closely.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes. Okay, next item. The fiscal year 2027 secondary fund budget with Neely.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee and board. Share my screen. Okay, you should now see the memo I prepared for the committee. Again, this will be on the proposed secondary aquifer fund budget for FY 2027. The requested action is that the committee make a recommendation to the full board for consideration at their meeting later this month. And I'm now going to walk you through that budget. I would also say that in the materials, there is an attachment A. Well, there is a resolution that we can walk through after I walk through the budget. But I have updated that budget just slightly from what's in the materials. So when I show the budget on the screen right now, you're going to see it's just slightly different than the numbers in your packet. And I'll talk through where those differences are. If you're ready, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to begin walking through the budget. Please feel free to raise any questions as we go along the way.
All right, please proceed.
One of the main things that changed from our new information was this carryover number here. It went down a little bit from the one in your materials. This is the estimated carryover from FY 2026. That's the 7.4 million roughly. Then we have the general fund that will come for 2027. That's the 5 million. Then we have the receipt of the cigarette tax. That's the other 5 million. And then you can see that line item recharge conveyance reserve for 3.5 million. This was a switch from the past in the recharge conveyance fee payments system. They've gone to a level pay. So they're utilizing that reserve this year, 3.5 million of it. And then we have estimated interest of roughly 750,000, bringing that total to 21,713,919. I'll begin by walking through the recharge section. Feel free to ask any questions, and we have staff available to address those if you have any. The total recharge budget is 12,150,000. You can see that the staff is requesting $4.7 million for recharge operations, $7.1 million for budgeted infrastructure projects, and you can see those lists of projects spelled out as was where those funds will be directed. And then the last section there is the budgeted investigations of 350,000. Again, bringing that total recharge budget to 12,150,000. Is there any discussion of this? We do have an asterisk here on that 7,100,000 that you would have to pass an additional resolution for us to be able to spend any of that money. If there's no discussion, I'm going to move on to the cloud seating. We can always come back.
Yes.
The cloud seating budget here is roughly $5,033,780. You can see it's broken out into a few sections here. The collaborative program O&M and the statewide O&M, that total is $3,998,780. You can see those various line items there. And then down below, we have the collaborative program capital and the statewide capital. That's total is $785,000. And then staff is asking for a $250,000 reserve And that's how we arrive at that full 5,033,780. And you can see there's various asterisks there next to some of these line items. Again, that is where staff will have to bring a resolution back before the board to authorize spending of those funds. We can't just spend without your action. Is there any questions or discussion on the cloud seeding section? Hearing nothing, I'm going to move down into our basin specific items here. For the Treasure Valley, staff is asking for 620,000. Again, the 170 is for the annual monitoring in support of the Treasure Valley model. Then we are requesting 250,000 for the Treasure Valley Recharge Pilot Project. The Treasure Valley Groundwater Level Synoptic Year 1 of 2 is requesting 150,000, and then the Star Watershed Project, this would be Year 2 of 2 for 50,000. Any questions about those items? Moving down to the Raft River, staff is asking for $50,000 for Raft River hydrologic studies and monitoring. As you're aware, the board has been funding a hydrologic study in the Portneuf Basin. Staff is requesting 150,000 for Year 4 of 4 for that hydrologic study. Moving down to the Bear Basin, staff has identified a water sustainability item for roughly 200,000, and we have put an asterisk there because we would want to bring that back to you because of the lack of detail in the description of what that would be used for. You would want to be consulted. So we have a asterisk there. Moving down to the Lemhi Basin, again, support of water sustainability initiatives for the settlement. $250,000 is what staff is estimating, and we have put an asterisk there as well. Mid-Snake Basin, this has been an item for a number of years. This is that Mid-Snake water quality monitoring. It's annual, and staff is requesting 50,000. Moving down to the Palouse Basin, staff has identified a line item for aquifer monitoring and is estimated that to be $100,000. Moving down to the Mountain Home Basin, you'll recall you're funding the development of a groundwater model. You've been funding that annually, and this is Year 3 of 4, or FY 2027 would be Year 3 of 4, and staff is requesting $250,000 for that line item. And again, you'll see another line item like that next year in next year's secondary fund budget. The Big Lost Basin, you'll recall you have developed a groundwater model for that area. You have staff has identified $130,000 is the amount needed for that annual monitoring and support of that model. Moving to the Wood River Basin, you'll recall that as part of the settlement in that basin, there has been established a Conservation Infrastructure and Efficiency Fund known as the CEF. And FY 2027 would be Year 2 of 3 for that agreement. And as you recall, that's where the board matches up to $200,000 for infrastructure projects in the basin that help the users become more efficient. And then lastly here, the staff has identified $100,000 for modeling analysis in the Wood River Basin. And that's the last of the basin specific items. So if there's no questions there, I'll move on to our hydrology activities items. Staff is requesting $300,000 for ESPA monitoring, $650,000 for statewide surface water and aquifer monitoring, and then monitoring well drill program, $750,000 in support of the WESPAM, ESPAM, and the Northern Drilling Program, totaling $1.7 million.
You have a question for Neely, sorry. A little behind on the Wood River Basin, excuse me, modeling. Does that include the Camas model that was the evaluation of what's going on in Camas?
I may ask staff to address that, because I'm sure I'll get it wrong. So I'll let staff answer that, Mr. Barker.
Madam Chair, Mr. Barker, so the Camas modeling efforts is a completely different effort. We don't have a groundwater model in development, but that project is wrapping up. We'll have a 3-dimensional hydrogeologic framework model that's being developed as part of that effort.
So we're done with that and we don't need to fund it?
We don't need to fund it, no.
All right, moving on to the statewide items. Staff has identified $250,000. And again, this goes to professional services such as media services, and federal outreach services. And there are a few other administrative items that come up during the year where those would be drawn upon. That would bring the total budget to $21,233,780 and would leave you with a reserve for work in other priority aquifers of approximately $480,139. And again, there's an asterisk there, so we'd have to bring it back before the committee and the board to request spending those funds. And with that, I would stand for any questions on this budget. And I can also move to the resolution if you'd like me to walk through the now therefores.
Okay, we didn't have any questions while you're presenting, so I'm assuming that we're ready to move to the resolution.
Okay. It's a fairly lengthy resolution, so I'm not going to walk through all the whereases. We have condensed them from previous years. They were significant amount more whereases, but I'm going to jump right to the now therefores. Now therefore, starting on line 60, now therefore be it resolved that the board adopts FY 2027 budget for the secondary aquifer fund as shown in attachment A to this resolution. Again, this may be adjusted based on actual cigarette tax revenues received, interest earnings, and then the FY 2026 carryover. Looks like we have a spacing problem here, so end of line 65, we'll have to space that down, but be it further resolved that expenditures identified in attachment A are for the recharge operations and investigations for development of ESPA managed recharge capacity. Those may proceed without any further approvals, and that there are a number of ones that we will have to bring back before you to get approval. Be it further resolved that the expenditures identified for cloud seeding, O&M may proceed with no further approvals, and that the expectation of the shared financial participation among state water users and the Idaho Power Company. Then again, the board may modify this budget at any time during the fiscal year.
Okay, committee members, are there any questions regarding this proposed budget?
Madam Chair, I think it looks great. I move to recommend this budget with the accompanying resolution to the full board for their consideration at the next board meeting.
Is there a second?
Madam Chairman, I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and second. Before we vote, is there any other questions on the budget or the resolution from other board members? Okay, so all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Neely,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
for the work there. Next item, last item on our agenda today. And probably a reason it's last is the water management account.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
We always save the best for last.
Yep, that's for sure.
All right, Madam Chair, members of the committee, board members, yes, I drew the short straw, and we'll be wrapping up today with a discussion about the water management account. This is also a discussion for the board about budget planning and setting a spending plan for the fiscal year 2027. So I'll go ahead and start today by just reviewing the Senate Bill 1363, which is the fiscal year 2027 natural resources maintenance appropriation for a number of agencies, but also specifically provides for appropriations to the water management account. And then I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking to you all about a potential allocation of funds or spending plans specifically for those fiscal year 2027 appropriations. Those total $31 million.
And we'll talk about that a little more. I know you're familiar with these, but some of the direction is slightly different than last year, so we want to make sure that's clear. And then lastly, to just discuss whether the committee is comfortable recommending a spending plan for the water management account at the upcoming May board meeting. So Senate Bill 1363 provided funding and direction for the water management account, and specifically references those actions for the board in sections 16, 17, and 18. And it, of course, authorizes the transfer of those funds around that July 1 timeframe. Section 16 captures the flood management program and authorizes that appropriation of $1 million, similar to previous years. And it authorizes that transfer from the Department of Water Resources General Fund to the Water Management Fund for same activities that the board has been pursuing over the last number of years in support of flood management type grants. And again, that direction continues to require that the board issue those grants through a competitive and matching process of prioritized projects. Section 17 is the appropriation of the $30 million for water projects. And again, it transfers those funds from the department's general fund to the water management account. And I've actually just copied the language directly from the bill here in section 18 to make sure that the board members are aware of the direction that was captured this year by the legislature. Specifically, the $30 million is intended to be used for planning, construction, rehabilitation, reconstruction, improvement of water infrastructure throughout the state, and prioritizes different types of projects in those sections A through D, including aquifer recharge, groundwater management, rehabilitation of water storage, conveyance systems, including reservoirs, diversion structures, pipelines and canals, and water supply delivery improvements to enhance efficiency and conservation, and emergency water infrastructure repairs and upgrades. The section 18 also specifies that those funds appropriated for the given year, that no more than 50% of those funds shall be spent in any single board district. That is similar to last year's appropriation. The difference here is that there isn't specific direction to the board to target geographic areas beyond the water board districts. Last year, of course, that money was earmarked to support activities in the ESPA, aquifer stabilization, and support of the groundwater district surface water coalition agreement. And then lastly, again, there is a requirement to report on the spending activities to the various legislative committees by December 5th of 2026. So we'll be tracking that as we did this year. So moving forward, this is a list you're familiar with at this point that identifies all of the appropriations since FY 2020 to the water management account, and highlighted in that bluish color are these new appropriations identified. The $30 million, and in the flood management grant appropriations, we've added the $1 million to that, to the total appropriations since 2019. And so again, since fiscal year 2020, the board has seen over $438 million dedicated to the account. Now, so I guess jumping into a discussion about a potential spending plan for the fiscal year, this new $30 million appropriation. We've broken out a suggested spending plan for your discussion and review today. And the table that you're looking at identifies, of course, some programs, most of which the board has been implementing for some time. The last item there, the Winchester Dam Repair Project, the committee just reviewed and discussed. So we went ahead and added it to this table. That second column identifies potential funding for each of those items. The third column, just for your reference, highlights the amount of money that has been budgeted under your last amended plan back in March, so that you can see how much has been is obligated under those different programs. And then this, of course, the last column identifies what the total obligation would be for those programs if you adopted this type of funding spending plan.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, that middle column that's not necessarily expenditures, or is it expenditures or is it what hasn't been expended?
So that middle, Madam Chair, Board Member Barker, the column funds budgeted by board spending plan resolution, that is strictly the budgeted amount. It does not show the expenditures. I do have a few slides here that will highlight those expenditures.
Okay, before we move off this slide, is there any other questions for Cynthia regarding the proposed funding column in particular?
Madam Chair, this is Jeff. Just to clarify, this is how we're proposing this to allocate the 30 million that was just appropriated and will become available on July 1st. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, Chairman Raybould, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And before we jump from this topic or this slide, you'll notice the Bear River reference on the second line there. Part of the objective there, the board has obligated $2 million for activities in the Bear River Basin. Some of this additional funding could be used to support the activities that you heard about earlier today from Mike Morrison in previous committee meetings under other legislation directing the board to look at development in the Bear. All right. So this slide is a table from your spending plan that lists the statewide regional water sustainability projects and the larger projects. What we've got highlighted in here in the blue rows would be new appropriations associated with that FY27 $30 million. So just bringing that to your attention here. Again, the second column lists or identifies what a proposed budget would look like for a spending plan at the May board meeting if you choose to advance this. The third column, as we just discussed, shows the funds that are already obligated to those various projects under your previous plans. And then the third column, the column beside that with the red text highlights the funds expended from those obligated projects as of the end of March this year. And then the final column to the right just highlights the amount of money that under this proposal would come from that $30 million appropriation. And so, Madam Chair, please let me know if you have any questions about specific projects. Largely, this spending plan is unchanged with the exception of those highlighted rows, the Bear River Basin for additional work in that basin, and the Winchester Dam Repair Project, if the board chooses to support that funding for that effort.
Okay, committee members, are there any questions? Any comments? Other board members? Okay, we can always pop back. I'll keep moving through the different parts of the spending plan. This table looks a little busier because you have because there are a number of programs within the ESPA Regional Water Sustainability Program that the board could choose to add funding to from that $30 million.
First, I'll draw your attention to the row that's highlighted in green, the ESPA groundwater measurement database. We're proposing adding some funding to that effort. Last year, or earlier this year, the board obligated funds to support the creation of a groundwater measurement database that's being spearheaded by the department in response to requirements through the Groundwater District Surface Water Coalition 2004 agreement on the ESPA. And so the department is moving forward with that. You can see some funds have been expended. They have identified a need for some additional infrastructure through the ITS, through ITS at the state. And so we're proposing that the board commit some additional funds to help with that effort and to keep it moving forward, given the time sensitivities associated with that effort. So under this proposal, you would add an additional $500,000 to that effort. That would not come from the $30 million appropriation this year, as that money may be needed in the very near term. The next items again include proposals, I guess, adding funding to to allow for additional groundwater surface water project grant. That would increase the amount available for subsequent rounds to $460 million. Additional funding for ESPA recharge infrastructure. And we've been coordinating with staff on that. We see potential for additional projects that could benefit from additional funding, in addition to what was proposed in the secondary fund. The measuring and monitoring support grant, Mary Condon just spoke about the change in criteria associated with that grant that would broaden the opportunities to statewide entities. And so this would allocate an additional $1 million to that grant. And then the Surface Water Coalition Operation Efficiencies Program, you just spoke about one of those proposals with Justin Ferguson. And so this would allow for an additional, $4 million to help with those proposals. Moving on to the statewide aging infrastructure grants, the board has committed a significant amount of funding towards those grants over the years. You have two appropriations from 2023 and 2024, totaling $75 million that was directed towards these grants, and we're getting to the point where we've nearly expended all of that money. And so the board dedicated over $26 million or obligated that for a round scheduled for FY27. And so we're proposing to increase that by $4 million from this year's $30 million appropriation to total $30 million for the next round of aging infrastructure grants. Okay, and then the next slide highlights the flood management grants, and we've condensed this a bit. The board has been issuing those grants since 2019 or FY 2019. Again, this year, another $1 million was appropriated to continue supporting those projects. We have a number of those grants or those projects have been completed. Over $3.6 million in flood grants projects have been completed to date. So we've been able to close out some of those projects, and where there has been additional funding that has not been spent from those previous awards, that money has been rolled over. That is, so you actually have $1.2 million available for flood grants from previous appropriations. And we're proposing that you go ahead and again combine, add that additional $1 million that would allow for $2.2 million to go towards flood grant awards in the coming year. And then these are just this is a summary slide just to remind the board that within the water management account, you do have a few statewide loans or loans that have been approved. Typically, your loans come out of the revolving development account, but the Lost Valley Reservoir Company loan and Northside Pumping Company loans are authorized authorized for funding from the water management account, and you will be receiving repayments to those loans that can be reallocated as appropriate. And then this final table actually lists some of the projects that have been completed to date, so they're no longer shown up above. But you have approximately almost $20 million of projects that have been closed out since you started generating the spending plans. So to wrap up, this is a summary of those categories that we just walked through. In total, this shows then for the regional sustainability projects, the ESPA regional sustainability program, and your various grant and loan projects, the board's proposed budget for May would total over $423 million. It does, this is means that there will be a slight overcommitment of over $4 million, though there are a number of these projects that are likely to either change in terms of their budgets or some of these loans have not been drawn upon yet. And so I guess if the chair and board members have questions, we can certainly revisit the budget allocations, but at this time, we believe that there is sufficient funding to accommodate that as needed.
All right, any questions or comments, particularly about the overage from committee members?
As you're thinking about that, I might clarify that one example of where that funding can be accommodated would be in the Lost Valley Reservoir Company loan. The board did authorize spending for that from both the water management account and the revolving development account to accommodate that commitment.
Okay.
Madam
Yes.
Chair, this is Jeff. You know, I think for something that we're going to approve, we probably don't want to over allocate. It looks like we've over allocated both the proposed total amount as well as the FY 2027. Well, no, that's right on 31 million. Yeah, because the flood grant.
Right.
So that one's right on, but I think maybe we ought to trim something back. I don't think we want to be over allocated and have people question whose account that's going to come out of.
Can we make the change to the Lost Valley loan, where the $4,222,000 is coming out of the revolving development account?
Madam Chair and committee members, I believe we can, and I will, after this meeting, I'll verify that we have that funding available, but I think we do in the revolving development account at this time. Another option may be to, again, consider some of your grant programs where you can see what kind of response you get during those, during the various awards, what kinds of applications come in. But yeah, that would be a simple step, Madam Chair. So thank you.
But I think what the board chairman is suggesting, we don't want to approve a budget that's over allocated from the get-go.
That, Madam Chair, that is correct. I think we ought to zero it out, and then we still have the ability to go back and make adjustments to this spending plan throughout the year, as I understand it.
That is correct.
We did last year.
A few times. No, thank you for that feedback. That's exactly what we were looking for. You know, my last slide here, I just want to remind the board, and it's like some of my columns are a little short here, but just to summarize last year's $30 million appropriation, which again was earmarked towards ESPA activities. But given the amount of effort that was put into that and the level of interest in that area, just wanted to remind the board that that funding is going out the door. Those projects are under development. And this provides a little more detail as to where that funding has been allocated. So between the various programs in the ESPA Regional Water Sustainability Program.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Cynthia, the expenditure column on this is that because the funds haven't all been expended or because we're not expecting all those funds to have to be spent?
Madam Chair, Board Member Barker, the former. These projects are just under development and so they just haven't been completed yet. Yeah. And I think that's all I have for you today. I do not, if the committee recommends, I'll come before the board on the 21st with a resolution that reconciles the overage and details some of these, the spending plan for FY27.
Okay, hearing that, is there a recommendation to the full board for the water management 2027 fiscal year 2027 water management account spending plan?
Madam Chair, I think if the committee was comfortable, you could go ahead and recommend to move that spending plan forward with the adjustment that was discussed about the Lost Valley loan.
Madam Chairman, I make that recommendation.
Okay.
This
Is there a
I'll
second?
it.
Okay, so it's been moved and second to move forward with the fiscal year 2027 water management account spending plan with the one adjustment to make it a zero balance.
Excellent. Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? All right, we'll see you at the full board meeting.
Full board meeting it is. All right. Thank you all.
Okay. Any other items? Nothing? Then, well, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
I second it.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good job.
Okay, we're
Madam
adjourned.
Chairman. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with this meeting. It's been a long day.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
See you later.